We set aside time once a month to talk with folks from Bartholomew Consolidated School Corporation and Superintendent Dr. Jim Roberts in studio with us this morning. Dr. Roberts, thanks for coming in.
You're welcome, John. I appreciate the opportunity as always to talk, and I don't like to mention the word snow there.
We're lucky that the snow is forecast after the schools, but we did mention it might be an issue for a big sporting event.
It may be, yes.
We're getting the cart ahead of the horse here, though. Hey, let's talk about the school board. Going to reorganize it next Monday's meeting. What happens?
Yeah, thanks, John. This meeting is a very important one. It is one that's statutorily required. We meet at 6:30 p.m. at Schmidt Elementary School. It's the first meeting of two in the month of January. We will do a lot of different things that we need to do to get organized as a school board. One, we will welcome a new school board member. Julie Biltz will take the place of longtime board member Bob Abrams. So we'll welcome Julie to the board, and she, as well as Kathy Dayhoff-Dwyer, Rich Stenner, and Jill Shedd will take the oaths of office after they were elected in November to take those positions. We have a number of other approvals or appointments that have to happen. We will appoint board officers, so president, vice president, and secretary at Monday's meeting, as well as give the board members various committee assignments for which they need to fulfill during the course of the year. And we will set our board meeting dates, times, and locations for the next 12 to 18 months. So just a lot of organizational important things to get accomplished at Monday's board meeting, and that's primarily the things that we will be doing at that meeting.
Okay, we're talking with BCSC Superintendent Dr. Jim Roberts this morning about things going on with your schools. Let's talk about Monday, January 21st, Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. What's going on? Another
important Monday. So we follow the 14th, the board meeting with the 21st Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and it is a holiday for BCSC. So we will not have school that day, so no students, no staff members in. It is a day of service, so hopefully we'll have a lot of people out and helping out in the community. There are many activities that are scheduled that day to celebrate the life of Martin Luther King Jr. It kicks off, the first one is a breakfast at the Commons that starts at 7:00 p.m., followed by a celebration at 7:30. That is organized in part with the African American Pastors Alliance. I do have the opportunity to speak at that particular breakfast celebration, as well as Mayor Jim Lenup and Frank Minkins, which is a CBS 4 news anchor out of Indianapolis, will come down and give the keynote for that address. So hopefully those in the public who are listening, paying attention, if you have an interest in showing up at that is at the Commons again, 7:00 a.m. On Monday, January 21st, Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Okay. Talking with BCSC Superintendent Dr. Jim Roberts this morning here on AM Columbus. The legislative session is starting soon, and third house sessions will be back. Let's talk about how that's going to impact BCSC.
Yeah, this legislative session is an important one, John. This is a long one, which means that the budget is going to be set for the next couple of years. That is always important to us as we wonder about how many dollars are going to be targeted for school corporations across the state of Indiana. An important piece as we go through this session is that BCSC will be hosting a legislative gathering on Friday, January the 25th. It will be at the Columbus Learning Center. We have sent out specific invites, but if public members would like to come and listen to what we have to say about what's happening in the legislation or with legislators, we'd be interested in having you there. It is again at the Columbus Learning Center at 8:30 a.m. We'll have a light breakfast and then kick off the informational gathering at 9 o'clock. It'll probably last around an hour to an hour and a half. Hot topics that we were looking at include tuition funding, wondering again how many dollars were coming our way. We are wondering about kindergarten students and when we were able to count them. A year ago, you had to be 5 by August the 1st for us to allow you into school and to count you as a student within our corporation and collect dollars. That was not previously the case, so we are wondering as to whether or not that will change. On My Way pre-K funding is something that we follow closely. We have that kind of funding here. We're hoping there will be increases to that and some barriers removed even to families applying for that funding and being able to participate. ELL students, we continue to have an increase in our English language learners. We're hoping that there are some opportunities that are provided to us with those students. And then we believe that safety-related items need to be targeted. There are grants available, but sometimes there are barriers even involved in achieving those dollars. Lastly, I would mention teacher recruitment and retention. Maybe should have mentioned that first. We are very interested in the things that will happen to make sure that we have the ability to attract quality teachers to our school corporation and then the ability to keep them within our school corporation. Lastly, I would just mention, John, with the legislative session going on, this community does a great job hosting third house sessions. That is through Cindy Fry and the Chamber of Commerce. Those begin Monday, January 28th. So we have our legislative gathering on the 25th of Friday. The first third house session locally is on Monday the 28th. That is at 7:30 a.m. at City Hall.
Talking with BCSC Superintendent Dr. Jim Roberts about your schools this morning. We've had one issue this year with some ice and some electricity problems. We've been lucky so far, but let's talk about the process you go through before we shut schools down.
Sure, it is an interesting one. We have had the one day, as you mentioned, and then snow perhaps on the way. We do start looking at things way in advance. We're paying attention to the weather forecast daily and looking at 10, 14 days if we can get that information. We do then get up really early on the days that we believe that there's a need to. We start hitting the roads at 4 o'clock a.m. We have people throughout the county checking the roads. We are communicating with other school districts, city county officials. We're following various sources for weather forecasts and weather-related information. And then from a timeline standpoint, I mentioned we start at 4 o'clock just checking the roads and the conditions. At 4:50, we are having a group phone call to talk about what we might be doing and what we're looking at, any other decisions or pieces of information we need. Then we try to make a decision by 5:15 a.m. And as we roll out that information, our e-alert system is probably the best one to pay attention to and to follow. There are sign-up instructions on our BCSE website if we have listeners who have not already signed up for that system. We also post the information on social media, as well as our school website and TV and local radio stations. I do invite our listeners to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, as well as like us on Facebook. We mentioned that one day that we've already missed. That day was before Thanksgiving, which doesn't happen very often, but we did have that ice day, no electricity in our schools. That makeup day is Monday, March 11th. That's the first Monday of the 2 weeks that we had designated for spring break.
Talking with the BCSE Superintendent, Dr. Jim Roberts, this morning on AM Columbus. Okay, give me an update on Legato Spanish Immersion Academy and Pre-K. What's going on there?
Yeah, we have two programs that involve pre-K and then into kindergarten that are open and available for people to apply and hopefully become enrolled in. At Clifty Creek Elementary, we have our Legato Spanish Immersion Academy. It is for pre-K and kindergarten students. We invite both Spanish speakers and non-Spanish speakers to apply. We then integrate those students into instruction in Spanish. The enrollment forms are online in both Spanish and English, and we welcome all in the community to get there. If you have a child who goes to a different school than Clifty Creek, you are still welcome to apply. We will get transportation to you and get you to that program. This is the first year for the pre-K program, this 2018-19 year, so in 19-20 we move it up to first grade, so we will actually have pre-K, K, and first grade. With our pre-K program, that enrollment is also ongoing. Students must be 4 by August the 1st to participate. Enrollment is open through February 28th. Also online applications available on our website, as well as paper applications available at elementary schools. This is a 5-day-a-week, all-day program, potentially available all day at 6 sites. One of those sites is Johnson or Busy Bees downtown, and then 5 of our elementary schools. Tuition cost is $160 a week, but there could be a free opportunity through that On My Way pre-K program that I mentioned earlier. So information too about filing for On My Way pre-K and getting perhaps a chance for free pre-K for some families who qualify available on our website. So we invite our listeners to pay attention to that.
Talking with BCSE Superintendent Dr. Jim Roberts this morning. We always have to talk about building maintenance and facilities and so forth, because there's a lot of stuff to keep an eye on. So where are we at? What's going on there?
Yeah, 21 buildings are always doing something, John, and right now we have a few things that are ongoing based upon board approval. The transportation and maintenance building, we are getting ready to move on that. That is a building that we have not done some things to for a long time, as we try to make sure that the buildings that have kids in them are addressed first. But we are going to put about $3 million into the transportation and maintenance building, expand that building, as well as improve the property that surrounds that. The Columbus East Auditorium is being improved. Looking forward to that. We are making some improvements to the Columbus East Chiller. So those individuals who have to spend all of their days, students, staff members at Columbus East, the climate will be improving in that facility. Soccer fields we've talked about a number of times. I think we're looking to move on those, and we'll see if we can have at least one of the fields ready for the fall. Not guaranteed that at this particular point in time. A recent project that is not costing us a lot of money that people might notice, it'll be a visible thing, is the softball complex or field next to Northside Middle School. Just to the north of it, between Northside and National Road, we're removing that field. So we'll just have open green space with the softball and baseball fields we now have at Southside Elementary School that are used by North and North Side. We have the ability to move that, get rid of that, open up that space a little bit, even make it more attractive looking. So that may be something people driving on National Road will notice that we're doing.
BCSE Superintendent Dr. Jim Roberts, my guest this morning on AM Columbus. We always like to conclude with the extracurriculars. I mean, there's a lot of learning goes on in the classroom, but there's also a lot of learning outside of the classrooms too.
There's a ton of things that happen outside of the classroom, John, and as you well know in this community, we have things going on all the time. East and North has been competing against each other here during this winter season. Gymnastics was this week, and North won that. Wrestling was just last night, and East won that. Boys basketball was won by East. Girls basketball was won by North. And then in the boys and girls swimming and diving, North won those. So we've had some splits among the two high schools as we've moved through the various winter sports programs. It is amazing as we get into January here, and before we know it, it'll be the end of January. Wrestling and girls basketball will begin their sectionals at the end of this month. So we will be moving into the tournament, IHSAA tournaments in those two sports. And then as we approach this weekend, tomorrow night, January the 11th, is the Final Four for the Elementary Basketball League, boys and girls. And we have a lot of people paying close attention to that with our 11 elementary schools. And then the finals will be Saturday morning at 8 o'clock at Columbus East, all this at Columbus East. And then the cheer competition begins at 1 o'clock p.m. at Columbus East. When we mention snow and weather, it looks like we may not have to worry too much about snow for school tomorrow, but we might have to worry about snow for that Final Four championship game thing with the EBL tournaments. And so if listeners are interested in that tournament, planning on attending, do be paying attention to our websites, our social media, your station, to make sure whether or not we're having that based upon the weather. Lastly, I would add, John, is that East and North Show Choir, they are having a preview at North, so the two choirs are coming together. That's at 7 o'clock p.m. on January 18th. And I said lastly, actually one other thing to add, are open houses for the high schools. This is scheduling season. Again, amazing that we're into January, looking ahead already to 2019, 2020. But North's is Wednesday, January 30th. East is Monday the 14th, so just around the corner. And New Tech's is Wednesday the 16th, so also next week. So the 30th for North, 14th for East, 16th for New Tech. Open houses for our high schools. Invite all to come out, check out, see what's going on.
Somebody new to the community might be wondering about this Super Saturday elementary basketball and cheer event. It is huge.
It is huge. There'll be a packed house at Columbus East. Paying attention to that. It's one of those, as you move through the system and you get into varsity sports, a lot of kids, you're down to 12 or 15 kids, for that sport at two high schools. But, this is 11 elementary schools with 10, 15 kids participating at each level, as well as the cheerleaders for all of that. So you have as many parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles as you ever will have paying attention to a sport in our community through this basketball time. And so it's an exciting time. It's great for the community. We look forward to seeing what happens tomorrow night and Saturday.
Dr. Jim Roberts, thanks for your time this morning. Good to see you.
All right, thanks, John.